Present to the Sacramento Air Quality Management District, something more or less like what he'll be talking about today. Several weeks ago, it's very interesting. I'm sure you're all familiar with Cummins, and you may not be as familiar with their new division, Accelera, which is developing their zero-emission technology. And you're all probably heard the rumors, or you've probably seen information about their fuel-agnostic engine, which is extremely low emissions and low carbon. So I think we're very lucky to have Tom, and I think, Tom, if you're ready to go, take it away.
Well, thank you, Tim, for that introduction. Tom Swenson with Cummins. I'm in our regulatory affairs group. I live here in Sacramento, been with Cummins for 20 years now. Before that, I did a 10-year stint in the Sacramento Air District where Tim and I actually worked together. So Tim and I go back, hard to believe now, but do the math, right, 30 years. So a pleasure to be here today. And we're going to talk a little bit about what Cummins is doing. I was talking with some folks earlier today, and they were like, well, you're going to focus on fuel cell. And it's like, yeah, we're going to talk about fuel cell, but Cummins takes a little bit different approach in that we want to offer a menu of technologies that we think will give you a choice so that you can match the right technology to the right application. So Cummins has been around a while, over 100 years now. 1919, founded in a very small town of Columbus, not Ohio, but Indiana. So if you say you're going to go visit Cummins and you're going to see them in Columbus, make sure you book the flight to Indianapolis. Otherwise, you'll end up in the wrong place. So, all right, so pretty small company these days, almost 74,000 employees, and we've done that through organic growth plus mergers and, well, not really mergers, but acquisitions. Talk a little bit about some of the technologies that we have invested in. One of the interesting sort of points of on this slide is the $1.2 billion that we invested last year into research and technology. Cummins is really more of a technology developer than an engine manufacturer. So engines are one of the things that we build, but we have a lot of technology packed into the company. We're on track to exceed this number in 2023 in terms of investment. There's a little bit of, I'll say, tension around that number in that some of our investors would say we would rather have the money in dividend, but we think this is the right investment for the future. We're really at a really critical time in technology changes over the next sort of 5 to 10 years. We want to be set up for the future. So we want to have that investment now so that we can offer those products in the future. All right. So Cummins is structured into 5 operating segments. So the traditional business, which is our engine business, power systems. So these are backup generators, locomotives, prime power, those kinds of things. And just to give you a sense of the range that Cummins covers, so the smallest engine that we build is 2.8 liters. The largest engine we build is 95 liters, right? And sort of everything in between. For transportation related, it's 6.7 liter to 15 liter. Those are, that's the range that we cover, but Cummins covers a lot of power applications that may not be obvious at the surface. We also have a components business, so turbochargers. We acquired some brake applications, so I mean, we're now at vehicle component level, and Cummins is in this sort of interesting space where not only are we selling power products on our own, branded as Cummins, we're also selling components to our competitors. So you could see a whole set turbocharger on a Caterpillar engine, which feels a little bit weird sometimes, but we cover all that. And then our distribution business, which is basically service and support. And then Tim touched on our Accelera business, which is really our electrified product platforms. And it used to be called New Power within Cummins. That seemed like a not very creative name in my opinion, so we branded it 6-8 months ago now. So if you hear about Accelera products, it's Cummins. It's not a standalone, it's actually within the core business. All right, so some of the applications that we touch. So your trucks are probably pretty obvious. For those of you that have a Dodge Ram with a Cummins, thumbs up, awesome product. Buses, fire and emergency equipment, marine, mining, recreational vehicles, defense, rail, power gen. We're also in the electrolyzer business. So we're making hydrogen through electrolysis. And we really are uniquely positioned to provide the solutions that others can't. As really the only remaining independent powertrain provider. So we supply both our competitors, but we also supply those that are building specialty equipment. We're providing the powertrains, and so we're able to really leverage those relationships to deploy technology in various sectors. All right, so if we sort of think about how are we going to market? So our base business, which is our traditional business, that's funding the development of the Accelera brand. So the Accelera brand is growing. We're selling more product every day, but we're still losing money. And I'm not telling any secrets here. If you wanted to look at any of our quarterly reports, you can see that it's losing money. So we're funding this investment in the technology through our existing cash flow and profits. And that's critical because we're attacking the market not as a startup, but as a business that intends to be around for another 100 years. So we're investing wisely. We're doing our best not to bring products to market until they're ready. And we have the luxury to do that because we have other business that supports our Accelera development. All right, so within the Accelera brand, that's where our electrolyzer technology lives, and we're selling these on a commercial basis today. Fuel cell systems, those of you that are relatively local, our fuel cell development and upfit center is in West Sacramento at the Fuel Cell Partnership building. I know the Fuel Cell Partnership actually moved out a few months ago, but that's where our facility is located. Electrification components, so that includes our batteries and energy storage systems, our electric powertrain systems, which is e-axles. So we've got that technology in the portfolio, and then traction systems. And we'll sell complete powertrain systems, or we'll sell components, just like we do in the engine business. Okay. So internally, we talk about this journey as our destination zero. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to move everything to zero emissions. It means that we're going to look at how do we lower emissions today. So one example of that is if we can make a 1% improvement in fuel economy on our diesel product, and we sell 100,000 of those in a year, that adds up to be a really big number, right? So there's power and scale. We also look at what are the options to reduce well to wheel. And I didn't get to hear everything this morning, but when I came in, there was some discussion about sort of, CARB and the rules and how they're looking at things. And they're only looking at tank to wheel, right? So the fuel tank, or the tank to tailpipe, really. And we think that's not really the right way to look at it. We think there are fuels out there, especially if you're looking at carbon, where you can reduce your carbon impact substantially by incorporating renewable diesel or renewable natural gas or those other renewables that are getting generated, especially on the natural gas side, through normal life processes, right? You're going to get natural gas off of landfills. You're going to get natural gas off of wastewater treatment. You're going, right? All these things are going to make natural gas. Why not use those for productive purposes in transportation? And then we're looking at incorporating this over time until, up to 2050. So that's our target. All right. So, what's driving these changes? So in 2024, there's four major regulations that are coming into effect in California. So there's the omnibus regulation, which if you live in the emission control business, is basically the set of rules that we have to meet as Indian manufacturers. So it's all the combustion technologies and what the rule set is around what the emissions are. So that starts in 2024. There's also the Advanced Clean Truck Rule, which requires sellers of heavy-duty equipment to sell a certain percentage of electric. And then on the fleet side, there's the Advanced Clean Fleet, which is a certain percentage of purchases have to be electric starting in 2024. And if that wasn't enough, we've also got the Clean Truck Check Program, that basically is a small check for trucks that starts next year. So there's a lot of going on, and a lot of these crossover. Omnibus impacts what we as powertrain providers can offer to the market. Advanced Clean Truck Rule impacts how many of those we can offer, so combustion product. And if there aren't enough electric sold, they can't sell combustion. They can't sell enough combustion. Folks that are trying to get goods and services moved get pretty upset pretty quickly. So I'll sort of give you some side advice that as much as it feels like CARB doesn't listen, keep bringing those real issues to them, because eventually they'll have to deal with the reality that you guys are facing. And I know it's painful. I know it's painful. And I think you probably heard some of this morning, but here's how we sort of think about adopting new technology. First and foremost, can the technology get the job done that you need to get done? I mean, if it doesn't serve the need, or you have to have 2 or 3 vehicles to do the same job, that doesn't make sense. So we at Cummins are trying to provide solutions where the technology makes sense for your operation versus trying to force fit the technology that we want to sell. So we figure if we offer it all, we don't care as long as the powertrain's painted red, which one you choose. Does it make sense economically? I remember a few years back, there was a shipping company that said, oh, all this clean air stuff is awesome. I lose money on every delivery, but I'm going to make it up in volume. Right? That doesn't make sense. You've got to stay in business. Is there infrastructure to support it? I mean, for a lot of these technologies, you might be able to get a vehicle, but if you can't charge it or you can't refuel it, again, it doesn't work for your operation. And then, can you get it serviced and maintained? all of these things have to be in place, and you know that for those of you that are operating fleets, right? All 4 of these have to be in place for it to make sense. Okay, so at Cummins, we still think diesel engines have got life left in them. And we're investing in bringing the next generation diesel engine. And I've got a really cool graphic here and a couple of slides I'll show you. We call it our fuel agnostic platform. So it'll be fueled, it could be fueled by diesel, natural gas, hydrogen, gasoline, propane, not interchangeably, right? The engines are slightly different, but the base platform is the same. And so that's how we're going to bring to market a lower cost by having the same base platform and making the adjustments to those components that are necessary for the fuel. We're also invested in battery electric. So the really electric transit bus that has our powertrain in it. The Bluebird school bus has our powertrain in it. BEVX, which I think is a horrible acronym. Internally, we call it BEVX. It's hybrids. And pick your fuel, right, for the engine part, but it's a hybrid technology. And then fuel cells. Right? So we're engaged in fuel cell development, and we have trucks deployed, and we're learning every day. We think there's a lot of synergy between making fuel cells successful and introducing hydrogen combustion early. Because if we can get the volume of fuel up, we think the price can come down significantly. Is anybody running hydrogen today? No? So hydrogen right now is roughly 25 bucks a gallon. Okay, back to that TCO, doesn't make sense. So we're thinking, right, how do you get that up? You've got to get the volume. Or I mean, to get it down, you got to get the volume up. You got to get those fueling stations running and reliable for it to make sense. And so how can we do that? We can leverage the existing technology that we have today in the engine. Those engines are engineered into trucks. We know how to do it. It looks a lot like natural gas. I mean, in the sense that the tanks are there, the cooling package, and all that stuff. So we want to leverage that knowledge base and use hydrogen. Now, unfortunately, our friends at the state don't share this vision yet. So for those of you that think that we're on the right track, at some point there's going to be a workshop that CARB's going to hold. We think it's probably coming up in the next couple of months. No date yet. But if you think this has legs, I would encourage you to share that opinion with your resources board when they do have that hearing. At the Environmental Protection Agency, they have really embraced this technology. Makes a lot of sense. It's zero carbon on board. It does have some NOx, which we think we can control very well. And it gets that infrastructure around hydrogen going. So the fuel stations, the tanks, the storage tanks, getting people familiar with it. Technicians are able to work on it because it's an engine, and they need a little bit of refresher training or just extra training, but nothing dramatic to where you have to pull them out of service for weeks or months to retrain them. We see all of these sort of working together and building off of each other. So the diesel and the natural gas and the hydrogen have a lot of similarities and commonalities. And the hydrogen fuel cell is connected with the hydrogen internal combustion engine. And the hydrogen fuel cell is really an electric vehicle that happens to get its electricity from hydrogen. And then the, the diesel and the battery electric. I mean, you can replace the fuels. But that's where the hybrid technology comes in. So all of these really are complementary and not competing against each other. And we get into this debate about, well, who's going to win? We don't see it as which one's going to win. Which one is the right one for your application? That's how we think about it. And that application is probably influenced by a number of things, right? Regulations and incentives. Some companies and agencies have environmental sustainability goals. Can you get the infrastructure? Does your business model support it? So all of these things are going to sort of play into, right? The batteries make sense, the fuel cells make sense, the hydrogen ice makes sense, natural gas, renewable diesel, right? It's all in the mix here. And it's likely you're going to see sort of this mix even within fleets. The different applications will make sense for different technologies. So we look at it as we're sort of on the front end of this curve, which we call the messy middle. And we have no vision that this thing is going to be this nice, gradual, sloping curve, right? It's going to be all over the map, and it's going to depend on a lot of different factors. But with the goal to get to the lowest emission technologies, sort of in the 2050 timeframe. And it's going to be this combination of stuff. Okay. So this is a super cool video for fuel agnostic. So the white part of the engine is the part that's associated with a particular fuel. And the red part is the base product. That same engine, whether it's a hydrogen, natural gas, diesel, will sit basically in the same those folks that are designing trucks, integrating products, really like this concept. They don't have to know more about each type of fuel. That's a big part. It's not totally seamless in the sense that it drops in one to one, but it goes a really long way to go. Questions, and I will give you one of three answers. I will tell you what I know. I will tell you that I know, but I can't tell you. Or I will tell you I don't know. So, who wants to go? So in the steady state, selective catalytic reduction. So we're going to inject urea, so it'll look very much like a diesel after treatment. But it doesn't need to be nearly as big because the NOx is already pretty low. So we don't know, this is a long way to say, Tim, we don't know yet. We're actually running tests right now. There's a test engine at Southwest Research. We're hoping to have those sort of preliminary numbers early next year. Yes?
And they ran efficiency tests at Cummins between the fuel cell efficiency and the efficiency efficiency of the hydrogen?
So the efficiency difference between hydrogen ice and fuel cell? Yes, but I don't know the direct comparison. Combustion is always going to be less efficient, just in general, right? The conversion rate isn't as good. And so we're not suggesting that this is necessarily a one-for-one for fuel cell. It gets hydrogen going, and there may be applications where it's a long-term solution, but we think it really enables hydrogen in the nearer term. I mean, fuel cells work. There's no question about that, right? They work. Was there one out here today? You've got one, right? Yeah, right. I mean, it's expensive, right? It's very expensive. We're still learning. I mean, just to be perfectly, blunt and honest, right? We're still learning about these new technologies and sort of what it takes to live in the real world. I mean, we've got all sorts of things that run fantastically in the lab that we can't let go yet because they won't survive in real world applications. And the last thing we want to do is release something and then you get a bad taste and you say, well, that thing sucks. Well, you're right, that one did. And so we want to make sure that we develop it to the point to where it has a fighting chance of working. And even then, it's going to be a field trial so that, we're just not going to jump right to commercialization. So we see the combustion of hydrogen really as very complementary to the development of fuel cells. And that supporting infrastructure role. And it's super low emissions now, so why not use it? Tim and I used to work for a guy that used to say, sell what you got. So, okay, right, let's not wait for the perfect. Let's use what we've got available today. Anybody else? We can talk about fleet rule regs and emission regs too if you want. Yes?
Kind of gives an idea, what kind of interest level are you seeing in the 15-liter CNG engine? Thinking that in the context of Dave Brenschler's comments earlier where, a lot of the CNG fleets have been kind of admonished for doing that in the current CARB regime. How has that impacted the potential market appetite for the 15-liter engine?
Yeah, so the question is around our 15-liter natural gas engine. We have had unanticipated interest. We knew fleets wanted the 15-liter on a natural gas platform. We knew that. In fact, I used to come to these kinds of forums, and I would preemptively say, we're not talking about a 15-liter natural gas engine, because I knew it was going to come up. So, we've got it now. It'll be available in Peterbilt and Kenworth chassis starting next year. I don't know if they've put the order book quite yet, but it will be. And then in 2025 in a Freightliner chassis. When we announced that engine availability, our phone rang off the hook for fleets that wanted to field trial that product. We could have deployed a couple hundred of them easily. So we have seen just a ton of interest. And the fleets that are running the field trials, they love it. It's got the power that they need. There's one fleet that's running here from Oakland to Reno every day, and they say they pull the Summit, Donner Summit, just no problem. And they ran the 12-liter for years, and so they see that the pant's different. They absolutely love it, and they're getting better fuel economy. That platform's 400 pounds lighter than our current 12-liter natural gas engine. So you get bigger displacement, more torque, more horsepower, better fuel economy, and it's lighter. So yeah, it comes back to sort of sell what you got. I mean, I wish the state wasn't so set on a single solution, especially in the near term. We could do a lot of stuff in the near term if they just be a little more flexible. Anybody else?
hydrogen for your vehicles, would that mean in your yards you'd have to be a lot less infrastructure to fuel them back up again, that sort of thing?
So the question is around hydrogen infrastructure, and that is, so I'm going to take the leap of faith that you're comparing it to like charging.
Yeah.
Compare with charging hydrogen versus.
What I hear, $84 million.
So I am not in the hydrogen fueling station business, so I don't have a sense of what the cost is. What I can say is that natural gas, hydrogen, gasoline, diesel gets less expensive as you have more throughput. Right, you have a fixed asset, and the more fuel you move, the less expensive that asset is on a per gallon basis or per energy basis. Electric's a little bit different, and I'm in this business too, so I'm not poo-pooing it, it's just the facts. You can't use the same nozzle to fuel multiple trucks. Well, you can, but logistically it's tough. It's tougher. So the electric infrastructure doesn't scale the same way. You need more chargers. So that tends to get expensive very quickly as you have those chargers. So that's where it sort of comes back to, so what makes sense for your operation? Are there some applications that make sense for batteries? Cool, you should do that. Right? Are there applications where natural gas still makes sense? Awesome. Diesel? Cool, right? So that's really what we spend a lot of time with our fleet customers, is figuring out what do they want to do and how do they want to do it. And then we work with them to match the right technology. And in some cases, it's like, don't do anything different. Because you don't have the necessary infrastructure. We can't meet your range requirements or whatever, the case may be.
I guess that takes care of it then, Tom. Thank you very much. That'll help me welcome you back.